Is your social media manager supposed to bring in sales? This is one of those questions that, on the surface of it, looks really simple, but I think it's very complicated when it comes down to it. Maybe not complicated, but it's something that executing is going to be rather tricky. So, is your social media manager supposed to bring you sales? Well, that depends on what it is that you guys agreed to in the first place. But it's my opinion that if you guys agreed that the person is not just supposed to manage your social media, but also supposed to manage conversations at each stage of the funnel, all the way down to bringing in actual sales, it's my own opinion that if that's the agreement that you have, then even though you call that person a social media manager, that person is actually more of a business development rep, because that's what business development people do. They manage top of the funnel, and they also manage conversations all the way down until the potential customer pays a deposit into your bank account. But strictly speaking, I guess a social media manager is not supposed to bring in sales. What they're supposed to do pretty much is just make sure that your social media is out there and it's popping and it's gaining attention and is bringing in leads. So the tricky part is now going to be they do their job well, the leads come in, and then people making inquiries, and they send you a DM on Instagram or a private message on Twitter. No, is it private message? Okay, direct message. I can't remember. Anyway, so many M's. So basically, they do their thing, and so if it works out, and then people send a message on Twitter, LinkedIn, or Instagram, I guess the big question now is, since that person was just supposed to make sure that things pop off and they're not responsible for closing the sale, then whose responsibility is it for pushing the conversation forward? And I guess these are some of the delicate things that we don't quite consider when we're looking for a social media manager, because if you recognize ultimately that the social media manager is not responsible for bringing in sales, then once the sales process has begun in a strict sense, someone reaches out to say, hey, I saw your Instagram handle, I think your wedding planning services or your wedding decor is tight, how much would it cost? Then I think at that point, strictly speaking, the social media managers, I don't think they're supposed to carry the conversation forward, because I doubt that they have the training required, except if your own approach is that you have already prepared templated responses and you've prepared package sheets and price sheets and stuff like that, which the social media manager is supposed to send out, and then when it looks like somebody is serious, then you step into the conversation. So when it comes to engaging social media managers, there are lots of discussions that you guys ought to have. What is your role? When do we think the sales conversation has begun? When am I supposed to come in? And are you responsible for making sure that this inquiry that's coming through direct messages or over the phone, are you responsible for making sure that the person is going to book with us at the end of the day? So these are the conversations that you need to have. But if you're leaning my own way, then a social media manager is not supposed to fulfill those roles. So I guess if you're going to employ a social media manager, you guys have to come up with an understanding about how you guys run your tag team. So they do all the top of the funnel stuff, put out engaging comments, maybe respond to comments, but then once an inquiry comes in on the DM, how much are you available, all those kinds of questions, then you step in. So there are going to be some niceties involved around managing the Instagram handle, who is going to have access, which terminals are you guys going to work out from. And when I say terminal, I just mean the phone, basically, as in, are you going to be signed in perpetually on your own phone, and she's signed in perpetually on her own phone or his own phone? Is that even possible? Well, I don't even do stuff like this. I don't do social media management, so I have no idea what is possible or not. But these are the questions that you guys are going to ask. But ultimately, if you're going to make that person responsible, and that's a business development manager, as I see it, or whether you're going to run this whole tag team thing. I'm sure you guys can see now that there is a need to take the discipline of personal selling seriously, because it is a separate discipline, it's a separate activity. So being engaging online and making sure that there's buzz and people are looking, commenting, liking, sharing, engaging, that's one thing. But then when somebody reaches out to say, how much are you available, can you do this, that's a separate conversation on its own. So you, as the business owner, you ought to be you ought to take responsibility for, at the very least, learning about these sorts of stuff, so that when eventually you do engage a sales manager or a social media manager or a business development representative or a sales boy or a sales girl or whatever it is that you are that you decide to call them. The reason why you have to take responsibility for learning these sorts of things is because these people are going to need training, and so you need to be able to give them training, or at the very least guidance about, this is how we are going to go about converting the sale. Converting the potential customer. So yes, we're having all these likes, all these engagements, and all these inquiries coming in through DM, but you have to give them directions. These are the kinds of customers that we want to work with: people who look like this, or people who sound like this, or people who ask this. This is the kind of person that we want to work with. This is how we're going to guide them through the conversation, from this step to this step to this step, and this is how we're going to close the deal. This is how we're going to ask for the commitment, and then this is how we execute, and this is how we fulfill. So you should be able to give them directions on all these concrete issues. So even though you're going to delegate any of these functions, that's the reason why I think you ultimately, as the business owner, so let's say you are Okechukwu and Sons Photography, that is why you, Mr. Okechukwu, need to know about sales and personal sellings, so that you can give directions to your sons or whoever the reps are, to say, this is how we're going to go about handling these conversations. But in summary, answer to the question, is a social media manager supposed to bring you sales? Ultimately, in a strict sense, I guess the answer is no. So that's the question that I wanted to tackle for today. There are other questions that I'm going to look at the next recording, also tied into this social media manager thing. And why am I on this social media management buzz all of a sudden? And that's because, as usual, I've seen some stuff on the gram, and it's caused me to I've seen some stuff on the ground, and it's caused my brain to juggle a few things, and I figured that it's something that I might as well address anyway, since in actual practice, at least from the people that I hang out with in Abuja, it looks like in actual practice, wedding planners, decor people, and even some people I've seen in the tech space actually do hire social media managers. And sometimes it's in the spirit of trying to bring in more sales, because you think, I'm not good at managing my social media. That's the reason why we're not getting lots of inquiries. So let me get someone to do that. And then sometimes it's in the spirit of, this is too much work, it's drudgery. So let me bring somebody in to handle this. And so I figured, if this is what we actually do in our space, photographers are doing it, event planners are doing it, decor people are doing it. I don't know any videographer who has a social media manager. I'm always surprised if they're out there. I just don't know anyone personally who has a social media manager. But bottom line is, if we're all doing this in the industry, I guess it's time that we start engaging in these conversations as well. Do we get a social media manager? What are they responsible for? On what terms? How are we going to get about closing the deal? What else? What are social media managers for? So all those sorts of questions. So the next 3 or 4 episodes will be social media manager question related, and I'm going to take it from questions that I've actually seen floating around on social media, on Twitter or Instagram. So thank you very much for listening to the Sales for the Nigerian Wedding Industry podcast. I'm your host, Abuja-based sales consultant and media event professional, Tavishima Ayede. Thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next recording.